And I'd like to introduce our host, is Andre Robert Lee, who is a filmmaker just back from New York now, arriving in Philadelphia, but he'll go into more detail in that regard. Andre, where is Andre?
I'm here. Can you see me?
There you are.
Bump myself up, I hope.
You're good.
I raised my hand, I bumped myself up.
There you go. All right, so you can take it away, Andre.
Great. Well, good morning. Talk to you about producing for film and television, producing and directing film and television. And I'm going to focus it around a particular episode of a show that I did. And as you comment, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself because it gets hard to hear and focus. To throw some questions out. I'll talk about 20 minutes or so. And also, I'm very open to questions during my presentation. So please feel free to use the hand raising options. Under reaction, let's just raise your hand and I'll try and get to you. Or if you want to put a question in the chat, I'm pretty good at multitasking, so we can make this a dialogue. I'm going to say that I'm going to share some clips that may feel a little heavy. I produced a TV show for CNN called This Is Life with Lisa Ling. We did an episode on Chicago and the history of violence in Chicago. So there is some pretty heavy information. I want to give you a heads up about that. And I encourage you, if this lands on you kind of hard or difficult, feel free to check in with an adult or reach out to me and let us know that this is a lot for you, because I think that is important to acknowledge and say as we uncover these topics and stories. The show we made was rated PG-13, and I think everyone here is over 13, but still, I want to make sure I put that caveat out there in advance. So I'm going to share my screen and begin the conversation and chat with you all. So let's go to the keynotes, get to the first page, and start. So can everyone see on the screen now the information card, my information stuff? Thumbs up, great. Thanks, Ryan. So I'm Andre Robert Lee. I'm a filmmaker. There's my website, my email address, my social media handles. I did not put my Snapchat. Just didn't want to do that today, but there's a ways to get in touch with me and follow up. And I encourage you to please stay in touch and ask questions, and we can find ways to network and connect. I do believe that today's interns and young people are tomorrow's VPs, so I believe in staying in touch as much as possible. I have some people that have been working since 13 and 14 and now have production companies here in the Philadelphia area. So I am excited to be here with you all today. As I said, I'm a director, producer, and I'm also an activist. I use my work as a chance to encourage dialogue and conversations around issues that are complicated, because I believe that we can all fix and change the world by reshaping our hearts and our minds and joining together to fix the world. When I was little, when people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to change the world. And I didn't know what that meant. And I try and use my films as tools to do that. So thanks for joining us once again on this workshop day, and looking forward to chatting. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my career, and then use the TV show that I just did as an opportunity to take us down a path of what it means from my perspective to be a director and a producer. So I direct and produce movies. I started out as a teacher, and I still teach right now. I teach in Philadelphia at a high school, but I started out making movies late in my career. I wanted to do it, but I was afraid of it. I thought, I'm not wealthy. I don't have friends in the business, nepotism, all that stuff. I can't do it. But I jumped into it, and as you saw, my Instagram handle is autodidacticism, and that means self-taught. Everything I learned on set. I had never went to film school. I never took any film classes. I took a lot of photography classes to understand the ideas of images, but never took any film classes. And this still is from a documentary that I made about my life. It's my first time directing, and it's called The Prep School Negro. I was a kid that grew up in North Philadelphia and went to a private school on a big scholarship, and it really opened my eyes and changed my life and restructured the world for me. So I made a film about it, all about that experience of being a kid, transitioning from one community to another and exploring the self. And from there, I went on to work. Actually, before that, I worked. This is the biggest movie I worked on. The first big movie I worked on. It's a movie called The Best Man, and the budget for the film was about $10 million. And I was the director's personal assistant. Spike Lee's cousin Malcolm Lee directed it. Malcolm Lee's latest movie was this Space Jam 2. That's Malcolm Lee. I was his assistant on this film called The Best Man. It was a Universal picture. You may recognize some of these faces. Some of them have blown up. This was Terrence Howard. This was his first big film. Taye Diggs' first big film. Morris Chestnut has been around, but this is one of his bigger projects. And Harold Perrineau, this was pre him being on the HBO show The Eyes. And they're all like young and eager. We're shooting in New York City, and it was an amazing film to be a part of. And I went into it and did like all I could do. By this time, I had finished college, finished graduate school, and was thinking like, I'm doing these little remedial jobs. But I did a thing that I called the Zen of photocopying. So whenever I had to make a copy or get coffee, I made sure it was the best potential job version of it that I could do. And I share that because I went into this film set not knowing anything, but my ability to read, write, and think helped me leap over people and get a higher position than some other folks. So that really matters. It's great to be technical, that's very important, but being able to read, write, and think also made a big difference in the film set world. On this particular set, I love telling this story. We had a meeting with Janet Jackson. For folks who have their cameras, people know who Janet Jackson is? Have you heard of her? Some of you have? Janet Jackson is Michael Jackson's little sister. She came for a meeting because she did a soundtrack song. She did a song for the soundtrack. And after the meeting, the director said, I need you to write her a letter. And I went and wrote her the letter. And because I knew how to write and think and how to sit in the meeting, listen, take notes, and then write a letter, I was like, oh, word. And I got invited to more meetings, some other like stars and talent. And that little moment made the difference. So pay attention to that. Okay, so this is a guy I like a lot. He did a Netflix TV show called Private School Negro, and I did my documentary called Prep School Negro. And his show was on Netflix. He's a much bigger talent than I am in terms of his presence. Kamau Bell is his name. He has another show on CNN. And when he made his show, people were like, Andre, you should get him. He stole your name. And I said, you know what does it mean to actually collaborate versus fight against each other? And we came together and made a little short film promoting both our projects. I think it's an important note to take out there. When somebody, instead of going in for a fight, I went for the collab, and it turned out pretty good. So I like sharing this. I worked at Miramax and Dimension Films for a long time. And I was in the business development office. I was in the marketing office. I was in finance. I was on set, worked on a lot of stuff. In Scary Movie, I like showing this because if you see the Brandon brother there holding the sign, the I See Dead People. So he wanted $10,000 to come from LA to New York to pose for this poster. And the company was like, you know what, Andre, let me see your hands. Come here. And so those are my hands holding that sheet up. They took a picture of me just holding the sheet up. I was there, I was present. I didn't get $10,000. I didn't get anything. I was an employee. So I like sharing that because it was amazing to work at Miramax Films. I worked on some incredible films. It was an intense, crazy, wild journey. Companies has had a really difficult past. I'm not going to mention the name of the guy who founded it because he just was bad news. And I had a really good experience working on this project and working with this company. And it was a moment where, and this is production. This is what production means. Production is like getting the job done no matter what. Whenever someone says to me, what does a producer do? I say a producer admits they don't know what the heck they're doing, and then they do the heck out of it. That is how I describe what a producer does. So, Scary Movie is there. This is a show I'm going to talk about a little bit more as we go forward. This show is called This Is Life with Lisa Ling. I worked on the episode. It premiered last Sunday, actually. It's gotten really great reviews and done pretty well. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, but this is a life-changing experience. I directed this episode, but I'll talk about that more in a second. This is the little short film that came my way that is based on a group here in Philadelphia. I got a call from someone said, we need a short film about students in Philadelphia taking science, technology, engineering, and math classes that are all about breaking barriers down. And Firsthand Philly works with students in West Philadelphia to learn about science, technology, engineering, and math. These are underserved schools. And what this film is used for a course at a place called Strayer University. So I was tasked with making like a little 20-minute short film. And I'll share this because I want you all to understand like what this stuff means. I got the call and it said, look, we have a budget of $25,000. We have this short film we need made. Are you interested? I was like, yeah, I can make this happen. Lucky I knew a group and like put it together and put my team here in Philadelphia together to make it happen. And it's available online. If you go to my website, you can see a link to it. And this is me faking it. So I'm not a director of photography. I am a director and a producer, film and television, and a teacher. But I put this camera on because I wanted to see what the experience was like. This is a pretty great version of a Steadicam operation that I use for a lot of my projects. And my DP, my director of photography, let me play with it and use it and see what it was like. I mean, this gives you some really beautiful imagery and the like. I'm faking it here. I'm not a DP person at all, but I did film a few shots. And I share this also because, when you work on a film set, you got to know how to do everything from my perspective. It really helps that you can understand and move forward and participate as much as possible. And so I'm going to start showing you some clips from stuff that I've done, some projects. I can't see the chat right now, so forgive me if there are questions. I'll come to those in a second. So this is one of the films that I made, and I want to talk about why I do my stuff and what my focus is. I tend to make films that are about equity and justice and trying to fix some of the wrongs of the world that I see related to inequality and racism and exclusion and discrimination. And that's kind of my lens I look through. And this is from a documentary that I exec produce about civil rights trips. I lead civil rights trips every year. With COVID, it's been a little hold up. But I take junior high school students and adults on tours to the South to explore the civil rights spots and moments. And I'm going to show, this is the end of the film Road to Justice. It's a short film. It hasn't really come out that much. We're still going. It did a few film festivals and won a few things, which is great, but we're still rolling it out. But I want to show you this last piece and hope you can think about some of the pieces that are mentioned in here. It's a quick clip that's about 1 minute long, and then I'll continue after that.
Are you going to go back home and go, wow, I felt really guilty? Or are you going to do something to impact the world?
My generation's role is to continue on the fight because it's not over. And I want to make sure people remember that.
Preserve it, tell it, pass it down, and make sure it never happens again.
Yeah, I believe that it is up to young people to fix and change and turn this world around, which leads me to this next episode, or this next show. So I directed and produced the show, This Is Life of Lisa Ling, 1 episode in season 8. Now the show has been on for about 10 years. It started in the 9th season, and I was brought in for someone that had never done an episode and asked to help them think about putting an episode about Chicago together. We were looking at the riots of 1919 and also asking the question, why is Chicago such a violent city? Are people just evil and bad, or is there some history that may explain what happened historically in the city? And I mean, that's kind of all I was given. And the team was rolling. And Lisa Ling, you see in the shot, she is so chill and so great and so wonderful to work with, and was an excellent partner and collaborator, which matters. When it comes to working in production and film and TV, it should be fun. You should be having a good time. Even when the topic is heavy. Our episode was heavy. And we made sure that we were good to each other, we were patient with one another, and really enjoyed our time together. Because you're working long hours. And if you're with people that you don't enjoy, you don't like, or there's not a community where folks feel supported, and celebrate it, it can lead to a really tough moment. So what did it mean to produce and direct this episode? Once again, I said they had a well-oiled machine that was running. So I had to jump on board and figure it out. So my job at the start was to find the people that we're going to interview for the episode. This is an hour-long program that aired on CNN. I had to find the people we're going to interview and talk to them, make sure they were good, weed out the bad people, get the good people, and make sure it was the right fit. Sometimes folks can be great on paper or be great to talk to, but when in terms of getting in front of a camera and telling the story, they're like no good. So I had to find the people that could do that. And then I had to write out an outline for how I thought the show might go before we shot anything. And that was a journey. And then I had to write the questions out for the actual show. And then when we went on set, it was my job to direct Lisa. Now, Lisa's been doing this for ages, but she's like, Andre, how should I ask this question? You know, how should I go about this? We would talk beforehand, we would huddle up and talk before she sat down with someone and have a conversation. And then I had to find other elements and pieces. We had a lot of archival footage in this episode. So I had an archival producer, and I would say, I want an image of this building being knocked down. They would go and find it, show me 4 or 5 examples, and I go, that one. And then we had to get it approved by the network. So there was I can't tell you all because we'll be here all day, but there were so many steps. But in the big picture, the idea I had was I had to write the episode, I had to direct all the talent and people in it, and I had to produce, which meant organizing my entire crew. And it was a lot of work. It took all summer long to get this done. And I'm going to show you a clip that is a rough version of the cold open. So the show was told in 6 acts, and the first act is a cold open. If you know this guy on social media, check him out. He is hilarious. The little gift there. So anyhow, cold open, that was about 3 minutes long. So what I'm going to show you is the rough, dirty version that never worked out. So you may see in the bottom there, it says, this is TIL 808 cold open string out 08/11/21. And you see the time code. Everything on this screen that you see in the text is relevant because there's so much material and you want to stay organized. So the show was called This Is Life. The season was season 8. This was going to be the 8th episode. It ended up being the 5th episode because they moved it up because they wanted to play sooner. And cold open was what it wasn't act 1, act 2, act 3, had 6 acts, but every show has a cold open. And string out's a really important term when it comes to the film production world. The string out was, I said to my editor, here are the shots I want. Here's the story I want to tell. Here are the lines I want. I want you to lay it down so I can look at it and see what it looks like. Because it's one thing to put a script to paper. It's a whole nother thing to actually look at it and hear it and see. So you're going to see some blank screens where it's not full. You know, that date, 08/11/21, that's the date that my editor finishes and shared it with me. And then this time code that's on the right is really relevant because I need to be able to say like, hey, at 2:05:19, I need this shot moved around. So it's not like, remember when so-and-so, because it's just too much. It's down to a science when you're dealing with so much information. So this cold open is a little bit over a minute, I think. I'm going to show you that, and they're going to show you the actual version that ran on TV. So not many people in the world have seen this. So I'm a little nervous that we're taping it, but don't tell CNN. But here we go. I'm going to show this to you all now.
Start of another violent weekend in Chicago.
55 people were shot over the weekend. Nearly a dozen people died from those shootings.
The numbers are so staggering. 74 people shot, 6 murders.
Chicago is in the headlines almost every week, and it's rarely good news.
The number of people shot has already surpassed this time last year.
Just this past weekend alone, over 60 people were shot and 12 were killed.
The number of people being shot and killed is impossible to fathom unless you go back in time, back 100 years ago, when a young boy tried to cool off in Lake Michigan.
He and 4 of his friends decided to go to the beach along with everyone else. They were ordinary kids.
Black kids.
Black kids, yes, black kids.
All of that simmering tension just blew up that day.
The boy was killed that day, and not many remember his name. but it's Eugene Williams. And his death started a chain of events that led from rocks to riots.
They drove into Bronzeville and they opened fire.
To promises broken.
Every family that wants to stay in the community will stay in this community.
The plans for transformation wasn't a plan at all.
All the way to now, when dozens of Eugene Williams die on the streets of Chicago every month. Do you think things have gotten a lot better in the last 100 years?
No. They're worse.
Our way of living might be a call or a cry for help, but people might not understand it.
Where there's poverty, there's usually a high rates of violence.
Tonight, I'll meet people who have lived that story.
It's like every day you risk our lives by coming out the door.
And are trying to change it.
We're trying to change a mindset that goes back generations. We have to make killing not cool again.
So that was a rough, that's a string out. It's rough. It wasn't color corrected. It wasn't sound mixed. The music wasn't in there. Lisa did what's called scratch chat. Sorry, she did scratch rather recordings. And what that means is she just like recorded into a mic. It wasn't in the studio. Now I'm going to show you the version that actually ran on TV. And this is also footage I'm not supposed to show you, but I'm doing it anyhow. So this cut is how the show opens. So think about the comparison of what we did. Listen to the sound mix. Look at the color correction. Listen to the music in there. Listen to how Lisa sounds. Look at it's like it was ready for TV, but we had to work like really rough in the beginning with it to build it out. My job was when that came in, I had to present that to my exec producer, present that to the network. They had to say yes, no. We had to get permission for every single shot. We could make sure we have release of all the people. Like it's a whole lot to put into place, and staying highly organized is really important. So we went from how it started to how it's going. And so this is what the network sent to me when the show was done. And they said, check this out and make sure that you finally approve and sign off on this. And the color correction works and the sound mixing works. You can see it says it's a stereo mix. The total playtime, TPT, is 41:57:11. This is a TV show that has to fit into a 60-minute show, so they can add commercials. I was told to make it 41:53, but I cheated and took 4 seconds and 11 nanoseconds, I guess it is, because I wanted it, and I fought for it. So now you got to fight for what you want, even though the network like CNN says no, because I couldn't cut out certain stuff. So I'm going to play this opening. This is about 2 minutes, and then I'm going to play one more last clip and then open up for question and answer.
This is the start of another violent weekend in Chicago.
55 people were shot over the weekend. Nearly a dozen people died from those shootings.
The numbers are so staggering. 74 people shot, 6 murders.
Chicago is in the headlines almost every week, and all too often, it's bad news.
The number of people shot is already surpassed this time last year.
The number of people losing their lives is impossible to fathom. But if you go back 100 years to a hot summer day on the shores of Lake Michigan, you might begin to understand.
He and 4 of his friends decided to go to the beach along with everyone else. They were ordinary kids.
Black kids.
Black kids, yes, black kids.
What happened to a 17-year-old named Eugene Williams started a chain of events that led from rocks to riots.
They drove into Bronzeville and they opened fire.
To promises broken again and again.
Every family that wants to stay in the community will stay in this community.
I don't see the black people. Where we at?
Do you think things have gotten a lot better in the last 100 years?
They're worse.
Where there's poverty, there's usually a high rates of violence.
Tonight, I'll meet people who have lived that story.
It's like every day you risk our lives by coming out the door.
And are trying to change the ending.
We have a new brother. How long you been here?
I've been here for 3-4 weeks now.
We have to make killing not cool again.
I have always loved Chicago. There's a lot to love. The incredible skyscrapers, the hot dogs, Wrigley Field, and baseball. But there are two Chicagos, the one filled with beautiful neighborhoods, parks, glamorous shops, and let's be honest, mostly white people. And there's the other side, the one that breaks my heart.
The number of children dying this year like nothing that we have endured in recent memory.
15 people were shot at a funeral home on the city's south side.
In 2020, Chicago experienced a 50% increase in gun-related shootings. And in 2021, it's up even higher. Over the last decade, there have been over 1,200 people shot in this South Side neighborhood alone.
If you grow up in this neighborhood, you feel like you have to have a gun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're guilty by association. You know, if somebody comes down the street shooting, they're not going to say, oh, he's not a part of that group and give him a pass.
46-year-old Curtis was born and raised not far from here.
Do they know we're coming?
Yeah, they know we're coming, but they don't know this car. They're probably securing the block on this end.
Not so long ago, Curtis was a high-ranking member of one of the biggest gangs in Chicago. But now, he leads a very different life, trying to help those who are still involved with gangs find alternatives to violence. Because of his earned respect on the streets, he's trusted, making it safe for my crew and me to come on the block.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm Lisa. Nice to meet you.
Okay, so that was our start. And I'm going to show one more little clip because I think it's important to bring it back to students. That's my dude, Umar. Umar is one of my students in my advanced filmmaking class where I teach. He's also my little mentee, and he's just awesome. And he loves mountain bike riding. And I got permission for him to share this clip. It's just 1 minute, because I think it really speaks to what production is. And it's a whole, he made this little clip about what reality really is. So you'll watch a clip and then we'll talk about it afterwards, and I'll open up for question and answer. I think that is a great way to close out my conversation, because we looked at how rough production is. A lot of work, and directing is a lot of work, and how things look when you first get them, and then what you can turn them into. And here we're going to show his in reverse order. So we'll watch this really fast, and then I'll open up for question and answer. I love that. And I share that just because production is a lot of work. And his clips are awesome. He's all little sparks and flashing, he's flying practically. But it takes, he has to make those shots again and again and again and again. If you get a chance, his YouTube channel is The Friendly Neighborhood Mountain Biker. And he does a lot of great, incredible stuff with filmmaking. So I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for Q&A. And thank you all for listening to my little chat. Bring this back. So we can use that. You can raise your hands. You have a question. I see some stuff in the chat.
Yeah, we have one here from Ben that said, what's it like being a black man in the film industry?
Yeah, what's it like being a black man in the film industry? Thank you for that question. It's wonderful and challenging all at the same time. I get to have a unique perspective, as anyone does when it comes to it. Things have changed, I think, which is exciting. There's more opportunities. Historically speaking, African Americans, Black people have not had the same opportunities in the film business as some of the people are. So I take it in personally and I enjoy the whole process. So it's awesome because I have a unique perspective, and I also work hard to shift and change the field. What I try and tell every filmmaker no matter what color you are, however you identify, make sure you have integrity behind your work. Make sure what you're doing, you think about it, what it means, and you come forward in that way. So thanks for that question. I see some more in the chat. Do you ever get to check out the editing process? I love that question. So as a director, the first time I directed a movie, it was my first time working with an editor at this level. It was a feature film, and we shot the film, we go to the editing room, we talk about the scenes, and then my editor said, okay, get out. And I was like, what? And he said, you can't sit here and watch me edit. It's like watching paint dry on a wall. I'll call you back when I'm ready to screen and show you pieces. So I do get involved in the editing process as much as possible, but every director and every editor needs to have a good relationship. You need to be able to fight well, because the editor has their visions they believe in, and director has their vision they believe in, and you have to have a good synced up relationship. We can be really honest and because that's how you get to a final product. So yeah, I'm heavily involved in the editing process, but you also have to editor. You can step back and let them work. So I talk to my editor about what I want. She goes off and does it. She comes back, and I give notes, and then we work together and collaborate.
How did you get these opportunities to start directing when you were first starting out? How did you seize them? How did you find them?
Yeah, I went and begged and pleaded. Remember I mentioned the zen of photocopying? Like intern as much as you can. One of my interns, she just took over as head of production for Netflix. And the first time I had a meeting with her in Hollywood, she was at Warner Brothers for a long time. And she was like, the phone kept ringing. She said, Ben, I'll call you back. Ben, I was like, who's that calling you? And she said, I don't know, Ben has this idea for this movie called Fargo he wants to do. I don't know if it'll work. I might do it. I'm going to see. It was Ben Affleck calling her. My former intern was telling Ben Affleck, I'll call you back. I'm talking to Andre. And I was like, that's kind of dope. And here we go. She went on to do the Lego movies. She did all those Lego movies. She did Wonder Woman. She was huge. And now she's off to Netflix. And she was my intern. So today's interns are tomorrow's VPs. So I push and beg and get it any way I can. So I share that story to say, when you may be like an amazing director and you get on a film set and they want you to go get the water and do that job and like take notes on all that you see and be someone people like. Because when they like you and they see that you're hard work and you're dedicated and committed, they'll invite you back to the next project.
And Devin's asking, what do you like best about working in the film industry?
You know what? When you sit in the room and watch a movie, I know that's been hard the past year or so, but when you witness people seeing your art and you hear them laugh, or you see them cry, or you see people gasp, or you see people get changed and their lives are changed and ask questions, there's nothing like it. When you see your art affecting people, I think that's probably my favorite part. And I'll add a second one. It's fun. It is fun to make movies. I've traveled all around the world and met all kinds of amazing people with the work I get to do. And, this is not, I respect everybody's job, but I am not someone that can work in a bank. I am creative. I want to be out there. I want to travel the world. I want to try and get new experiences. I'm not someone that would do well working in a bank day by day. So I had to be true to my heart and follow my art.
We know you're a storyteller, but from a technical standpoint, Almakar is asking what type of monitors you use for color correction. Is it HDR content?
Work it out. I love these specific questions. See that, and this, you're getting that. If I could Google it and tell you, and look at my chart, but I don't have time for that. LG has a couple of really great screens, and honestly, and here's a note for you, especially when you're starting out, because sometimes you'll want to buy these expensive things. If you get a good DP or a good technical person to come and color correct any screen, it's honestly just as good. So I have a buddy who's a projectionist, and what he does professionally is he goes around he works for Netflix, Apple TV, the big studios. He does like big premieres. He came to my house with his like expensive piece of equipment and color corrected all my TVs and all my monitors. And I was like, done. I don't have to pay $4,000 for that monitor. I have it at a very near quality of that.
Nice. Are there any studios or directors that you have a personal respect for, would like to recommend?
Yeah. You know, I mentioned Netflix, and I like what Netflix is doing. Netflix has democratized the film industry. The studios here, if you all like podcasts, I love podcasts. There's a great podcast called You Must Remember This. And it's about the first 100 years of the secret and or forgotten history of Hollywood. And they talk all about the construction of the Hollywood business. And the studio business has been tricky for a long time because it's literally at Warner Brothers, at Paramount, there are like 5 or 6 people making the decision about what gets made. And that's why you see certain movies being exactly the same. Here's an example. People fought for years against Black Panther being made. It's like, well, I'm not so sure it's going to work. You know, will people want to see it? And look, thank God they said yes and made it happen. So I look at what Amazon Studio, Hulu Studio, and Netflix are all doing. And I like that they have a ton of money. And I know people who work on those productions, who work with them, and it's versus like a Paramount movie versus a Netflix movie. The budget is much larger and better. The treatment is much better because they're moving away from the system control. And I mentioned, I'll say her name. Her name is Nigel Kunyundel, my former intern, who's now like head of production at Netflix. She's greenlighting shows. She left Warner Brothers after a great successful career. She didn't leave angry or bitter, but she left to go into this new frontier because, I mean, it's exciting what you all have the option to do. There's so many opportunities now. You can make a movie and distribute it yourself, and put it on YouTube, etc. Like that wasn't when I was your age, you know, that wasn't an opportunity, it wasn't an option. So I like and I'm watching what these independent subscription-based companies are doing.
So we've got somebody asking, did you ever get to check out the editing process? I would even say maybe, do you have a particular process that you prefer, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spoke a little bit about that earlier. In terms of the editing process, what I like is I hire and partner with editors that I trust. I need to be able to like, here's my baby. I'll be back in a month. Please take care of my baby. And when I come back, my baby needs to be well-fed, well-dressed, change the diapers, clean it, burp it, feed it, all that stuff. And then we're going to move the baby forward. You have to have an editor you trust. So yeah, as a director, you need to get out of the way and let your editor edit, and also support your editor as much as possible. What I tend to do is especially for documentaries, I script out the whole documentary and give that to my editor, and then they do the string out that I showed you, and they share and say, what do you think? And we go back and forth.
So we got about 5 minutes left, but this question is, what's it like working as a director versus working as a producer?
That's a fantastic question. And it's tricky because for one, and I stand by this, in the entertainment business, there are no rules. There are rules and there are no rules. And you have to make them up as you go along and do the best you can and try and live and work with integrity. I really believe that. And I like directing more because I like having the vision. I like the struggle of like, what is this going to look like? You know, you see a script and it's like, okay, make this into a television show or a movie. And that's frightening, you know, because you're like, I got to hire the people. I have to pick the people. I have to set it all in place. Now, the producer is in charge of making the director's vision happen. And I'm actually really good at that. I'm really good. I'm organized. I'm good at working with people, managing people. But if I had to choose, gun to my head in a quickly way, I would go for directing. Because directing, you get to be so creative.
So Evie is asking, how much do you make? I suppose depends on the job, but give us some insight.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very, very fair question. You know, and I'll share with you. It varies from project to project. Here's a note for you. Whenever you're trying to figure out what your rate is as a director or producer. So as a director, figure out what the entire budget is for the show and fight for your director fee to be 5% of that budget. When you're a producer, learn the whole budget, fight for 2 to 3% of that budget. That's standard. That is a standard. And everyone's going to fight you and push you back. Start high as director, ask for 6 and let them figure out to get you down to 5. I also, so that's what I tend to try and do. For some stuff, they have a line for what the fee is for a director producer, and it is what it is. I have a day rate that ranges, depending on the project, between 800 and 3,000 a day is what I try and push for. When it's a big, huge project and I want it for a short amount of time, I push for the close to 3,000 a day. When it's an independent, smaller piece and they don't have a choose budget, I make the decision and go with I just picked up on something. I went to Salt Lake City for 3 days and I agreed to like 800 a day because I'm co-directing with the project that's already been moving, but some other stuff are coming down the line. I'm pushing for much higher numbers. God, this is being recorded, isn't it?
So Maya is asking with regards to documentary filmmaking, what are your recommendations?
What recommendation? It was hard to hear with the
recommendations for documentary filmmaking.
The recommendations for documentary filmmaking: watch documentaries, watch and study documentaries, and I'm a huge fan of the credit crawl. And the credit crawl is what plays at the end of a show, and I look at names and see who's done what, see who directed, who produced, and then I look for their other projects. So watch as many documentaries as possible. And then Toni Morrison, William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, all the great writers said this: write what you know. If you're making stories when you're making stories, think about what you like, what you love, what you enjoy. I would probably not make a great documentary about deep sea swimming with sharks. Not something I'm really good at, because I'm afraid of sharks, and deep sea water makes me cringe a little bit. So I probably would not make a documentary about deep sea swimming with sharks. But I know people, and I like people, and I like challenging concepts and subjects. So I go towards that. If you like cooking, go towards cooking. If you like sailing, go towards sailing. Find out what you like, it's in your heart, and pursue it. Some people are better at sports, find your passion.
That's great advice. What was your first big job, your first big break from Eric?
Yeah, my first big job was working on that film, The Best Man. It was a Universal Pictures. It was a $10 million project. I guess that wasn't really my first big break. That was my first project I worked on. And I worked on a lot of movies. I would say my first big break, that's a tough one because they've all felt so good. And I've had stuff air on public television. I think the Lisa Ling piece right now, today, is the first time I made a TV show that was automatically launched to millions and millions of eyes. And that just happened. So I've been pushing and going for a long time and have had some great success and love it. And here's the thing I'll share. I moved from New York back to Philadelphia, and I was so nervous I'm out of the business. Folks won't take me as seriously. Dude, I've been busier than I've been ever being back here in Philadelphia because people don't know my reputation and know what I can do. So I'll close out by saying, live with integrity, be good at what you do, treat people well, and people say this kind of jokingly, but when you're on set, feed your crew. Well-fed, happy people will come back and work really hard for you. Hungry, unhappy people won't show up the next day, and you'll be out of luck.
Thank you very much, Andre. Appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
Take care, everyone. Have a good production this season.
Yeah. Make movies. We need y'all.
Make movies.